Hey everybody, and welcome to Zoo Tour Matters. Today we will be visiting Birmingham Wildlife Conservation Park. Located right in the heart of Birmingham, and despite being a small zoo at only around 6.5 acres, this zoo comes with a lot of history. Opened in 1964 as Birmingham Zoo, it later closed and was reopened in 1974 as a Birmingham Nature Centre under the Birmingham City Council. The zoo was rebranded in 2014 and is now known as its current name, the Birmingham Wildlife Conservation Park. Come and join me as we take a tour of this amazing zoo and let's see what we can find. Starting in the southwest part of the zoo, coming out of the entrance building, which is a former museum, we are greeted with our first exhibit, a large, spacious exhibit for white-faced sake. Now, the zoo specialises in a number of primates. There are quite a few callitrichid exhibits, which are tamarins and marmosets, lemur exhibits, as well as some slightly larger primates, such as these sakis. The exhibit is a good size, large and well planted. It is home to 4 sakis, 3 females and a male. Here you can see a male with that white vivid face, the black colouring, whereas the females are slightly mottled brown. They don't have the bright white face that the males do. Opposite the sakis we have another spacious enclosure, this time for greater rear. There aren't too many bird species held within the zoo. This is primarily a mammal zoo, some reptiles as well. But here we do have one of a very small handful of birds. We then come to our first reptile enclosure. This is a relatively new enclosure that was repurposed, formerly holding European pond turtles, now holds sand lizards. Unfortunately a no-show, hiding away from the hot sun. Next, we move on to the southeast part of the zoo. As we start in this area, we come across one of the larger exhibits at the zoo, this for European lynx. Now, the zoo is down to 1 lynx, a female called Nala. She is quite elderly, in cat years. She's lived a very long life at the park. This exhibit, again, nicely planted. It's maintained enough to see the lynx, while also giving options to hide away. She did present herself quite well during my visit, spotting her several times throughout the day. Here we have a small exhibit. It's a mixed exhibit for Mara and squirrel monkeys. I think this is one of the poorer exhibits at the zoo. It is very small. Both these species used to live in a much larger exhibit elsewhere in the zoo. The zoo currently hold 1 Mara at the moment and a couple of squirrel monkeys. I definitely feel both species would benefit from a new exhibit down the line, especially given how inquisitive and how much squirrel monkeys like to climb and explore. Next, we move on to the dragon's lair. Now, for quite a small zoo, this is a very impressive species that the collection holds, and that is the Komodo dragon. The zoo has 1 single male Komodo. His name is Pete, and here you can see his indoor quarters, a very smart indoor area. On this visit he was very active, coming down to the glass, exploring the substrate, and then down to his pool. There is a smaller outdoor area, which is again nicely planted, which if you are lucky you'll see the Komodo utilising this. It was a very hot day on my visit, and he did spend his time inside. Very active, as I say. Here we have that small outdoor area. As you can see, nicely planted, plenty of shade options for the Komodo, should he choose to go outside. Here we have the blue crane, also known as the Stanley crane or paradise crane. Next, another large spacious carnivore exhibit, this time for bush dog. The zoo has quite a large pack. There has been some really good breeding success over the years for the collection of hound this species. This is definitely one of my favourite species that I got to work with. Very interesting. There is a lot of interaction between the animals, an amazing pack dynamic, which if you spend a little bit of time watching, you really see those interactions. Here we find a bit of history, an enclosure left over from the Birmingham Zoo days. Believe it or not, this used to hold gibbons. Now, given the size of the area, this zoo used to hold lions, leopards, bears. Thankfully, this enclosure is now home to the slightly smaller sacred ibis. We now move on to the northeast and the central parts of the zoo. There is a real mixed bag of species within these areas, but we start with one of the highlights of the park, this absolutely huge small primate enclosure. Lots of trees, lots of climbing spaces, lots of areas to tuck themselves away in. The animals have full access to all of the trees in this enclosure. Here is the indoor quarters. Even this space is probably larger than some small primate enclosures I've seen in other zoos. Several species call this area home, including these bearded emperor tamarins, as well as red titi monkeys. These animals were visible inside. That's not to say there wasn't anything outside. Just you need to spend a little bit of time looking and seeing if you could spot these small primates in amongst the trees, in amongst the vegetation. There's also a couple of red-footed tortoises within this area, down on the ground. Opposite this, we have another really spacious mixed exhibit, this time for Asian short-clawed otters, as well as a couple of binturong who are hiding in their nest boxes. The otters have bred really well recently, so a lot of pups were in amongst mum and dad feeding. There are regular feeds throughout the day, so you will get to see the otters active. These guys eating their crabs along the side of their pool. Next we have this red panda exhibit. Just one single panda tucked away in this tree. These cold weather climate animals trying to avoid the hot sun. Next we have a small but really well thought out reptile house. It's nice to see a traditional reptile house in the zoo. Obviously this collection has komodos, sand lizards dotted around. But again, it's nice to see that traditional reptile house that a lot of zoos are sort of tending to move away from a little bit, going with geographical ranges rather than taxa. The zoo has had amazing breeding success with species such as the Savu python over the years, as well as some of the larger tortoises, which you will see a little bit later. There isn't anything on show that you wouldn't expect to see in other collections that have reptiles, but what they do have, as I say, is really nice uromastyx, rhinoceros rat snakes, emerald tree boas. They also house beaded lizards, one of only 2 species of venomous lizards, the other being the Gila monster. You need to spend a little bit of time looking for each species. As I say, these are really well planted vivariums. Heading out of a reptile house, we now come to another mixed exhibit, this time for meerkats and Cape porcupines. Now, like the squirrel monkey enclosure earlier, I don't find this to be the best enclosure. Despite being desert animals, this enclosure is very barren. Definitely could utilise different substrates, more wood items for the porcupines to chew on, enrichment items, and probably even a lick of paint as well wouldn't go amiss. Next, we head to Moonlight, the park's nocturnal house. This area has some real gems of species, some that you don't see all that often. We start with a nice enclosure for Gaudí's monkeys. This is their indoor area, although there is a large outdoor area as well for this primate. The lights were on in the nocturnal house as the exhibits were being serviced. This exhibit used to hold Malagasy jumping rats, but is now home to a different rat, the northern Luzon clouded rat. 3 females call this area home, again a species you don't get to see all that often. These three girls were very active during my visit. Like I say, having the lights on definitely helped being able to view these guys a little bit better. Very pretty species. Next we find the Potto, part of the Loris family. More on those later. This is only one of 2 collections in the UK that hold Pottos, the other being London. This young Potto very active. Again, the light's definitely helping us on this visit, but really lovely species to see. Very slow, very graceful. Here we have a nocturnal and tropical house classic, the Lynx two-toed sloth. Just the single sloth in this exhibit, although it is a mixed exhibit. This sloth shares its area with a southern three-banded armadillo, rapidly moving around like a small ball. Nice to see a different species of armadillo in zoos. There is also a Duraculi, which is basically a night monkey or owl monkey. This one up in the top corner while the keeper worked. Here is the outside space for the Gaudis. Again, really well planted. You can't get too close to the exhibit, but it's nice to stand back and admire the primates outside. Here we have a secondary, smaller nocturnal house, but this one is dedicated just to Loris. Inside we have 2 exhibits, one for grey slender Loris, of which you can see here, and a second next door to pygmy slow Loris. Now both species had just been fed, which luckily for me meant these guys were very active. A lot darker, the lights were off, back to the normal nocturnal state. Luckily my camera picking up these guys. Here you can see the slender Loris moving down, using that leg strength and picking up quite a large bit of fruit. Get a nice shot of the face there, those huge eyes which really help the species to see in the dark like most other nocturnal species. You probably saw it before with the Duraculi, a nocturnal primate species, nocturnal monkey, huge big eyes to help see. Here is the pygmy slow Loris, slightly larger species, again down on the food bowl. You can see where they get that slow Loris name from. Very graceful, very slow. Also feeding. This one took a bit of food, probably a bit of fruit up to the top before feeding. Here we have another reptile exhibit, slightly larger reptiles again. Mixed exhibit for sulcatas as well as Aldabran giant tortoise. Here you can see one of those Aldabrans. Again, good breeding success at the zoo for their tortoise species. Moving back on to primates, we have this large exhibit for ring-tailed lemurs. Now on the most part, the zoo do their primate exhibits really well. It's nicely planted, plenty of space, nice large indoor area as well with climbing options. Obviously, being a lemur, these guys are native to Madagascar, as all lemur species are. This one probably being the most well known. Here is another Calatricid enclosure, squeezed in. This one is very well planted, to the point it was probably a little bit too well planted. Obviously, this replicates the tropical jungle for these inhabitants. Golden lion tamarins and pygmy marmosets in this case. Although, as I've mentioned before in other videos, you need to get that fine balance of visitors being able to see the animals. Luckily, the 2 species were inside, so they've got some nice views of these. There is a tunnel that connects the house, as you saw, to the outside area. Next, another larger primate. Here we have the buff-headed capuchin, also known as a golden-bellied capuchin. This is a critically endangered species of primate found in the southeast areas of Brazil. Quite often you will see these guys with coconuts smashing them on the top of their house, trying to get into them. Next we have the second of 2 cat species the zoo holds, this time ocelot. The enclosure is divided into 2, one side for a male, one side for a female. This can be opened up into one for breeding purposes to mix the 2 cats. Hopefully in the future the zoo hears the patter of tiny cubs. Lastly, we move on to the northwest part of the zoo. Now in this area there are enclosures for parrots, for wallabies, for pheasants, and also this large paddock for Sitatunga. the only hoofstock species the zoo holds. The zoo houses a male, 3 females. You can see that darker male there. Could probably utilise some sort of small pool for this wetland species within the enclosure. Here we have the European pond turtles, moved into a new home, previously housed where the sand lizards were. Quite fun trying to spot how many there were in amongst the algae and the water. And then lastly, our final exhibit, another very well done primate exhibit, this time for Colombian black spider monkeys. These guys actually used to live elsewhere, but unfortunately there was an arson attack on the zoo, which burnt their enclosure down. Thankfully, none of the primates were harmed, but it did mean they got this brand new enclosure. There is a female with a very young infant attached to her stomach, which was really lovely to see that breeding happening. And that brings an end to this tour. Thank you all very much for joining me, and I will see you on the next one.